Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Summer, spring, winter, fall. We're all accustomed to the varying seasons in nature around us. If you're like me, as the cold winter melts into the beautiful blooms and greens of spring, my heart and my mind seem to warm with the changing of the season. I'm more content and I enjoy life more. I just seem overall more happy in the warmer months. Rarely will you ever hear me complaining about the excessive heat of July and August. And I'm sure with the recent weather we've had lately that there probably isn't anybody here that's not ready for spring and to get the snow and the ice behind us, at least for a season. Day and night. Just last week we set our clocks ahead, gaining an hour of time. The days are getting longer and the nights are shorter. There are those in Alaska who live with 6 months of constant daylight. While that might sound great, it's a well-known fact that the human body rests better when sleeping during the night hours instead of the daylight hours. Can you imagine not being able to look up at the sky and see the stars because you lived in a state of perpetual sunlight for that amount of time? Likewise, can you imagine not being able to feel the warmth of sunshine or enjoying the beautiful blue hues of the sky or to see the rolling white clouds for 6 months because you lived in darkness? Infancy, childhood, adolescence, adult, old age, seasons of life which every human being is subject to if we're fortunate. When I read obituaries of individuals my own age and younger, I can't help but feel thankful that I've lived as long as I have. And you know, I haven't reached the golden years yet, but I do have some aches and pains here and there. And when I consider those who have died at my age or younger, I'm thankful for those pains because there are many who never reach the age where they get those pains. The very young wish to be older, the older wish to be younger. Sometimes those who are younger feel inadequate or unable to contribute to home, community, school, church. They don't feel like they can contribute as much as someone who are older. And sometimes, especially as we age, we may start to feel like we are a burden, or broken, useless. We just don't have it anymore. I want to read you a story, and this is from an email newsletter that I receive every day called The Liberating Word. And the story was written by Cameron Trimble. A legend tells of a man who used to carry water every day to his village, using 2 large pitchers tied on either end of a piece of wood, which he placed across his shoulders. One of the pitchers was older than the other and was full of small cracks. Every time the man came back along the path to his house, half of the water was lost. For 2 years the man made the same journey. The younger pitcher was always very proud of the way it did its work and was sure that it was up to the task for which it had been created. The other pitcher was mortally ashamed that it could carry only half of its task, even though it knew that the cracks were the result of long years of work. So ashamed was the older pitcher that one day when the man was preparing to fill it up with water from the well, it decided to speak to the man. I wish to apologize because due to my age, you only managed to take home half the water you fill me with, and thus quench only half the thirst awaiting in your house. The man smiled and said, "When we go back, make sure to take a careful look at the path." The pitcher did as the man asked, and noticed many flowers and plants growing along one side of the path. "Do you see how much more beautiful nature is on your side of the road?" the man remarked. I knew you had cracks, but I decided to take advantage of them. I sowed vegetables and flowers there, and you always watered them. I've picked dozens of roses to decorate my house, and my children have lettuce, cabbage, and onions to eat. If you were not the way you are, I could never have done this. We all at some point grow old and acquire other qualities, and these can always be turned to good advantage. It's my hope today that all of us, no matter where we are in life, will realize how much value and worth we have regardless of our age. And let us all come to appreciate that each season of life has a beauty all its own. Seasons, transitions, they're all around us. Even our own bodies regenerate new replacement cells at regular intervals. We're all changing all the time, and we don't even know it. We as human beings experience different seasons in all facets of our lives. Families change. Relationships change. Jobs change. There are health changes, financial changes, living conditions or accommodations change. It's easy to say the only real thing constant in life is change. I want to read from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, 1 through 8. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep, a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. Some may cringe at the phrase, a time to kill, a time to hate, a time to war. Some may ask, how can anyone really consider this passage to be divinely inspired? Who wants to embrace a time of war or a time to tear down, to cast away, a time to weep and a time to mourn? But the mark of good literature isn't that the piece has a moral or a lesson to teach, nor that the piece of writing is always positive and uplifting. The sign of good literature is that it reveals human life as it really is. The good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly. Over the centuries of time, who among us can say that killing, hate, and war have not been a demonstration of human life? Whether or not these negative demonstrations can be attributed to nurture or innate nature is another discussion for a different time, but we all know they exist. They've always been a part of human history. Conversely, who among us can ignore the massive love and healing that we as human beings are capable of pouring out upon each other, on other beings, and on our earth? Who can deny the relief and joy when we experience a time for peace, a time for healing, a time to love, to embrace, to keep, to laugh, to dance, and a time to build up? Maybe you're thinking of other seasons that could have been included in this passage. Maybe a time to marry and a time to divorce. As humans, we always experience spiritual seasons also. Seasons when we feel highly attuned to God or nature, to ourselves and to others, and at other times we may feel less vibrant or slow. Businesses experience seasons. Ask anyone who watches the stock market or does any kind of investing, they'll tell you. We have a planting season, a time to sow, to reap. The hard work of planting comes first, but the sweet goodness of homegrown strawberries or tomatoes is worth the work. The breathtaking flower beds with brilliant colors. We all love it when Bill brings flowers and sets them on our altar. It's such a blessing. They're gorgeous. But there's a season for those. And speaking of seasons, I know we have some Kentucky fans here, and y'all are like looking forward to the game today, but great season for Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Churches have seasons. I've shared before my upbringing in a very conservative church. And due to the very nature of fundamentalism, that you know assuredly that you have all the truth and everyone else is wrong, there were church differences and problems and divisions over doctrine and what's required to stay and be saved and to live in God's grace. When I was 10 years old, I experienced my first church split. My former church had very strict teachings regarding divorce and remarriage, and the split occurred over a relationship between two members of our congregation. Then when I was 13, another split occurred. This time over a disagreement between the elders and the minister. And this split really caused a lot of pain for me. I was very close to the minister and his family, but those involved in the split, standing opposed to the minister, were some of my best friend's family. And in the end, I lost my best friend over that. The entire situation was very traumatic, and it took me a while to get over it. Her family went one way, and mine went another. And while we did run into each other from time to time, and over the next, several years, we'd hang out once in a while. Things were never the same again. Most, or maybe all of us here today, have been injured by an unpleasant experience in a former church. And that's not supposed to do that.
Let out before you
I've got it to loop, but I didn't, so. Church problems can tear a person apart on the inside. And they can destroy your morale, your faith, and your hope. Sometimes those experiences influence us to retreat from others or cast shadows of doubt on them. We may develop an attitude of mistrust. But again, isn't it a relief that these experiences are really seasons? They don't have to be permanent. We heal, we change, and we evolve. I'm not trying to minimize any painful past church experience anyone in this congregation has had at all. And I'm sorry for any hurt anyone here has suffered. But I would be dishonest if I didn't say that in some way, on some level, I'm glad for your experience. For if it had not been for your experience, most likely I wouldn't know any of you. I would not be standing up here today. I wouldn't be here. So take a look around you and realize that it's highly probable that our entire group would not be here had it not been for a changing season in the lives of some people here today. Unless you were born a Unitarian Universalist, a changing season in your life is what brought you here today. And that's why we're all here and now in this place. Open Door Fellowship has experienced different seasons. Formed with 9 original members who formed a steering committee and committed to goals as a fellowship. Sunday services were established, bylaws written, committees formed. There have been seasons of great growth, both numerically and relationally to one another. An attitude of commitment to the 7 principles prevailed. Boards have been elected, building funds multiply. Open Door has experienced a season of tremendous growth. There have also been periods of great joys and times of disappointment. There have been periods of sadness due to mourning the loss of Kathy LeMaster, Ed Macon, and Tom Gaston. Grief over the temporary separation from one of our own, Mary McCulley. There have been questions, answers, and more questions. Seasons. For Open Door, there have been seasons of great joy, and those will continue. But there have also been seasons of sadness and disagreement, misunderstanding, times of hurt. Those will continue. When I was a kid, whenever I would complain of some weird pain in my arm or my leg, my grandmother would tell me they were just growing pains. And because I still have both arms and legs, apparently she was right. And our disagreements, misunderstandings, and times of hurt, I believe these are our growing pains. What's necessary to build muscle? The destruction of the muscle tissue, and then the body repairs itself and the muscle becomes stronger. Times when we disagree, when we misunderstand or hurt, I'm convinced that if we continue to practice our principles among ourselves and demonstrate honesty, communication, respect, and humility, not always easy by anyone's standards, I believe our growing pains will give way to a stronger Open Door fellowship. A season of pain will fade as a stronger fellowship emerges, better equipped to live out our mission statement and practice our principles among ourselves and in the community. We've all seen those old-timey movies of sailors out on ships when a storm suddenly brews up and the ship's getting battered this way and that way. What do? They batten down the hatches and they hold on, waiting. Waiting, knowing that eventually the storm will pass. It's inevitable. It has to pass. Sometimes sooner, sometimes later, but it will pass. Because it's the law of nature. Sunshine and rain, storm clouds and sunlight. It's a season. Seasons, transitions, change, all are inevitable. And all eventually end. Earlier this month, Open Door Fellowship was accepted in the Unitarian Universalist Association. And I believe we're deserving of that. Because I believe this congregation has the potential for great impact. To make our community a more just and fair community. To contribute to making our piece of the world more healthy and sustainable. And to break the hold of prejudice. Will there be bumps in the road? Will there be issues? Of course. It's inevitable. You know, any of you have been married, living with one other person, you have problems. So anytime you get a group, any size whatsoever, there's going to be disagreements. And people aren't going to see eye to eye. And it's how you handle it that makes the difference, and how you come out of it. Does a woman give birth without any pain? I've never had a baby, but I'm sure you all can tell me. That just isn't part of it. The pain's part of it. You know, dead organisms are the only organisms that don't endure periods of change. I know that regardless of any season we endure, any turmoil, any pain, that we can prevail and come through it. And I believe we can overcome any issue if we choose to love and choose to listen and to respect one another. And if we stay committed and focused on why we're here. To offer help and healing and comfort, to effect justice, to be a lighthouse for those searching for acceptance, to respect those who yearn to be treated with a little human dignity, to love those who have felt or have been treated as if they are unlovable, to value those who feel worthless, and to be a haven for those who are looking for a path of spiritual growth that is non-judgmental of others, and to offer solace for those who just ache for peace. I view our community as a large garden. There's thirsty ground, hard ground in need of tilling, and areas in desperate need of some major weed pulling and replanting peace, fairness, and acceptance, and watering with compassion. I will leave you today with a quote from the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, one of the writings of the Apostle Paul. He said, "Let us not grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." Thank you. Discussion?
You know, Dixie and I come from different church backgrounds, but both churches refuse to let women speak on a Sunday morning. They didn't allow women preachers. Look what they missed out on.
I know.
Look what they missed out on.
Dixie, I appreciate you sharing and giving us a total view of how the time to change. I used to date this person for years and years and years. Every time we'd break up, that's what they would send me. You know, just exactly your title. It is a season to change. So you've given me a better perspective.
Oh my gosh, yes. This goes back to the thing with the leaky picture. I've noticed that, like in family photographs, or like the ones you just take at holidays. You guys do remember photographs? Okay. You only see old people's hands holding the baby. You never see their faces and their experience, and we should be conscious of that. Because all the faces need to be in all the photographs, not just the hands holding the young faces. You really have a point, just not so great.
I'm going to get more pictures developed and printed on paper again. I've been cleaning and going through old pictures, and I don't want to not have little snapshots for no reason, because they're so funny, and things that you completely forgot. They're not important things, they're just indicative of a time that you completely would have forgotten if you hadn't had a little picture, and we don't do that anymore.
And be sure and date.
And date and write who the people are.
They are. I had to go through so much of Edna's family, going back 3 or 4 generations. I have no idea.
No idea who they
we're
are.
talking about.
I've been keeping albums and photographs as the years went by, because I thought it was important to have it for my children, because we have so little family with the wars. The attrition was unbelievable, and I grew up knowing my father and mother, and that's it, and one aunt who was really nasty, but never mind. So it was just me and my brothers. No cousins, no aunts, no uncles, no other people like you all have. I hear you talking about them. And so I decided I better do something to ground my children with a past that they can talk about. And so I've sort of fallen behind in keeping up with the albums. But they're old enough to do their own now. But the albums are important with the photos, and keeping them on your phone isn't enough. You need to have a print in your hand.
And I want to thank you, Dixie, for our Thanksgiving picture. That is such a good picture, and that was such just a lucky accident that there were so many of us. And George was here and took our picture, and
It was a good season.
it's
We have a record.
we have
of this
just a
season.
good picture of a day that we just all accidentally showed up. It's a beautiful picture.
It's on my fridge.
I should have a print of it. I don't have a print
I
of it.
do. I have to look at it every day, and I like it.
Thank you, Dixie. Very timely.
Yes.
Very seasonal or whatever.
Seasonal, yeah.